education portfolio, workforce information and planning. She brings a wealth of experience to the role. Having studied chemistry at Dorham University, she started her career as a science teacher in Botswana, then later on in London. She went on to work for several years with the Foreign and Commonwealth Office in the UK, as well as overseas before specializing in HR. During her time as part of the HR senior leadership team, she stayed on as an instrumental part in supporting the organization in its cultural transformation and staff engagement journey. Who would be more capable to give this talk other than the lady who always wears a smile when you greet her in the hospital corridor. Let us all welcome Bridget Kelly.
Oh, thank you so much. Trip hazard. Thank you. I was going to say a little bit about myself, but you've done it for me. I was talking to Greg and Randolph just before lunch and reflecting how far we've come working together over the last 2 to 3 years, and it is an absolute privilege to be here today with lots of familiar faces and lots of people that I don't know either. So, the topic that I'm going to sort of lead us through a conversation over the next 40 minutes or so is in front of you. So, a better workforce experience, happy and productive employees, solutions that create a smile. And I was thinking, this effectively is my job description. So, I know we've got Neil later, so this is my appraisal. So, we've known for a long time, why is this important? And the answer is, of course, is the NHS and any healthcare system is the people. It is the people that deliver care every single day, 24 hours a day. And the scale, particularly of the NHS, is absolutely phenomenal, both in terms of size and complexity. And I think if we look at today's agenda, the complexity in particular is really reflected in the agenda. So, to start us off, I've got a quick quiz question. The NHS is often said, oh, it's the biggest organisation in the world, or it's the third biggest. So my question to you is, what biggest, where does it sit in the scale of largest employers in the world? It's not first. So question 1, where is it? And what do you think the top few are in terms of the largest organisations in the world? Hands up. I can hear USA, not the USA.
People's Republic of China, Army of People.
So People Liberation Army of China, third, 2.55 million. Second, US State Department, 2.91 million. Number 1, guesses? Close. That's number, because I think McDonald's is part of Walmart's. Walmart's number 4. Amazon number 5. China National Petroleum Company number 6.
Facebook.
No. Although actually it's hard, isn't it? Who to catch up with, who's taken over who. So I will spare your pain. It's the Indian Ministry of Defence is the largest. 2.99 million people. And then in number 7, NHS, 1.38 million. And I think when I reflect though at those top 7, there's no other organisation that I would want to be part of. I mean, I think it's, without getting too sort of political or depressing, I think the fact that it's all about defence and that those are the really big organisations can go down that route. And then Walmart and Amazon, so I think lots of us use Amazon, but the NHS to be the biggest public sector body that provides care, looks after people across the world, it's absolutely phenomenal. And every day I wake up, so you kindly went through my career, which is not the usual professional career, I just can't now see myself ever leaving the NHS. I think it gets under your skin. You know, as a non-clinician, I feel hugely privileged every day to be able to come onto any of our sites, work with clinicians and take a tiny, tiny part in delivering amazing healthcare to the population of Bucks and beyond. So I think there's been a shift in the last few years about the importance of happiness. It tends to get talked about in terms of engagement, but I think happiness is a good word. I think it resonates, doesn't it? You wake up this morning, you don't think, how engaged am I feeling? You think, how do I feel? How happy do I feel? So there's been evidence for a long time about the link between happy people working for the NHS and the quality of care. But just before COVID, the national teams in the NHS started to pull it together. They did lots of work talking to people who worked for the NHS or associated organisations and came together with the NHS People Plan. There was an interim plan and COVID hit us. And then they published the People Plan in July 2020. So I've worked for national organisations, civil service, now the NHS, and I think I have a healthy degree of scepticism about the impact of these national plans, because is that so what? So what difference does it make that a plan that is pulled together, published, talked about nationally, to our district nurses who go out every day, to a healthcare assistant who's working on our spinal ward. And I do think that the People Plan has got that golden thread. And for me, as a HR professional, people professional, to have that front and centre is really, really important. I think it gives us the tools to really shift the dial. So within the People Plan are the 7 people promises, which I think are on the next slide. There we go. So it's quite small print. I'll read them. So we are compassionate and inclusive. We are recognised and rewarded. We each have a voice that counts. We are safe and healthy. We are always learning. We work flexibly. We are a team. And then at the bottom it says, together we make the NHS the best place to work. And I think that promise does a fairly amazing job of distilling what's hugely complicated and complex to 7 things. So lots of organisations, we talk about the power of 3. I think distilling that to 3 would be a hard task. So 7, I think they've done a really good job. And I think the other thing for me is the use of the word we. So my role as Chief People Officer is to create a framework, create an environment where everybody who works at BHT can do all of these things. I can't do it on my own, but it's how do we create that framework and environment. So my next few slides, I'm going to talk about some of the solutions that we've come up with at BHT. And once I've gone through all these, I'd be really interested to hear your reflections. Are there promises that particularly resonate to you, perhaps now, ones that you think, actually this really struck a chord a few years ago, but now it feels like we're moving on and actually this is where we need to focus our efforts. Are there promises that we need to coalesce around and really drive forward? So, next slide. And I've got some good photos that some of you may recognise. I did have one of Neil, but then I thought, maybe not. Sorry, can you go back? So, yes, we are compassionate, inclusive, and, I come back to this. I think the role that the BHT KALINGA Filipino organisation has played in this, really leading the way from very small beginnings to conferences such as this. Our first ever Sports Fest in August is phenomenal. So we all jumped, ran, played volleyball, and brought together so many people across the organisation who'd never met. Other things that I've listed there is an allyship programme. So senior leaders, including the exec team, have been through an allyship programme over the summer, and there's a real theme today, isn't there, about diversity and inclusion and each of our responsibilities in this agenda. We're really lucky, we've got Karen, our chief nurse, and she's hosted the Nursing and Midwifery Conference, which is that courage of compassion, so that real golden thread running through. Next slide, please. So, second promise, rewarded and recognised. And we do lots of things at BHT, and we've got some great pictures here of our One Team One Goal Awards, which took place this year, celebrating 600 colleagues. That's about a tenth of our workforce. We've got e-kindness cards, monthly care awards, all the things that formally. But to me, the biggest challenge is how do you create an environment where every day someone says thank you to someone else that they're working with. It's that simple, oh, thanks for doing that, that's really great, thanks for making a cup of tea. Those are the things that build your, if you like, your batteries up, aren't they, Day? And you think, right, okay, I'll go and do that now. Next. A voice that counts. So formally, many of you will know the history to the Freedom to Speak Up Guardian and the Freedom to Speak Up across the NHS. It's really, really important work, and some of the recent reports that have come out underline that this work is still ongoing, and how I think freedom to speak up can sometimes be seen negatively. So I do prefer a voice that counts. All of us work in multidisciplinary teams. Everybody brings something to the care that we're delivering, and we have a different lens and a different perspective. So again, how do we do that every single day, whatever environment, is really important. So we met the lovely Dr. Jane Judy Clark came and visited us. She's the National Guardian, an amazing woman with lots and lots of insight and stories. And then the final bullet point there is about looking at the whole person. How do we support people? How do we support line managers? Because of the impact they have every day on people. Safe and healthy is interesting. So I think if we wind the clock back to the start of COVID, we thought about our physical health and safety in a way that we hadn't had to do in the UK for a long, long time. And we knew this, that as the pandemic developed, as the response developed to it, we had PPE, we got vaccinated, thank you May, again. So the physical safety, I think we had perhaps not really thought about as much. People knew about back injuries for nurses in particular, but that really puts a sharp focus on that. And then as we move through the pandemic, the psychological impact that it was having on all of us, I think, rose to the fore and rightly has remained a priority. So we've done some very specific things at BHT. We've brought in-house counsellors and we've got in-house occupational health professionals. And we have Wellbeing Wednesday, I like a bit of alliteration, that real focus that once a week, here's what we're doing to support colleagues. I put cost of living in here because money worries and how our outside lives impact on our day-to-day work should not be underestimated. And I'm really conscious that today, it's quite mild, but even with the Chancellor's budget or mini statement on Thursday, this winter is going to be really, really difficult for lots and lots of people. And the impact of home lives and people making choices between, do they turn the heating up? What food are we doing? We've got Christmas coming soon. So that's really, really tough. So we have started our work, and I think I'm really keen to emphasise this is just the beginning of this. Yes, hopefully all of you who work for BHT have received a brochure. Can you put your hands up if you've received a brochure? Yeah. Oh, that's really good. The post is working. But we continue to talk to people and listen and say, what makes a difference to you? Can we do anything ourselves at BHT, or can we signpost you? Learning. I think one of the things when I joined the NHS, even though I did start off life as a teacher, I didn't realise how much learning was embedded and just core to everybody's professional life in the NHS, that people did it all the time, every day, be that through informal learning sessions. We've probably got more masters and PhDs in this room than most other groups of professionals. So we're really working hard, Karen and I work hard together to really test what we're doing. Does it make a difference? Is it supporting people's professional development? We've got apprenticeships, We're really focusing on leadership and management as well. And I'm particularly proud of the work we're doing in Buckinghamshire with our Health and Social Care Academy. So working particularly with colleagues in social care, learning together, thinking about patient pathways and making a difference to those patients. Flexible working, I do quite like this as well. I'm like, ooh. And I'm always really conscious if I'm talking to clinical colleagues that if you're working in a ward area or a district nurse or working in community teams, flexible and agile means different things to different people. As a non-clinician and for our corporate services, we've really thought hard to purposefully think about how do we work to best support clinical colleagues in their delivery of care. So we have got a very lovely shiny building up at Stoke Mandeville. We've got agile desks that you can book into. And so my teams, for example, they've come together, thought about how do they work, how do we best deliver the services that we're trying to support colleagues in the organisation and build as a team. So my teams tend to come together on a Thursday. Any guesses why Thursday? Those of you that work at Stoke Mandeville might know the answer. Curry day. Like curry. So if you see lots of HR people in on a Thursday, they're there for the curry. And rostering, I know people, rostering systems can seem very tedious, but from the techie bit of me, this comes back to my science background, is how can the systems work to support people do what they want to do? So you're driven by what you're trying to do rather than the system going, oh, it's not possible. So as we work with our systems, and they tend to be external non-HS partners, but really saying to them, right, how can we work with you to make these systems deliver what we are trying to do? I think this is the last one, it's my favourite. So, working together as a team and team activities. People do it all the time at work, often without thinking about it, working as teams. And I am really proud about what we have managed to do despite various restrictions, particularly over the last few years, about coming together outside of work, be that through professional conferences or through some fun. So we had our second South Asian Heritage Month cricket match this summer. We have, I don't know if he was the top scorer, but he was pretty impressive. Anyone like to guess who was the star of one of the teams? Our very own Mitchell Fernandez. Phenomenal. I think, was it years of baseball? What was your... Everything.
I think they're just all athletic.
Yeah. Mitchell also very competitive. We were on opposite teams, weren't we? Yeah. Yes, he said, definitely. This is another photo of the Sport Fest. It does seem a long time ago, doesn't it, that long baking summer we had, but bringing together people from both our KALINGA Filipino organisation and across the organisation, we just had such a good day. And then yesterday, I think we've got some people from Ward 4 in the room. Yes. There you are. So we've done this for a few years now, which is if there's a World Cup or a European Cup, we ask wards and teams if they would like to decorate their area in the colours of a country that we've given them. So that was Brazil, which I think, one of the favourites, for the World Cup. I think that is my last slide. Could I ask you to go back to, I think, slide 3, where we've got the people promise up there. Keep going back, the one that's got the full people promise slide. Keep going back. That one. Yeah. So we've got 25 minutes, half an hour, that sort of time. And what I'm really interested to hear from you, I'm happy to take questions, we can start a conversations about, so there are these 7 people promises. In your experiences, are there promises there that you think, actually, that's the one or two that makes a real difference to me every day as a clinician working in the NHS? Where should we focus our efforts? And I suppose the flip side of that is, are the ones there that you think, I'm not sure about that? You know, why is that important? Are you going to help me, Greg? Facilitate the room. So the question is, of those 7 people promises, which of those do you think in your either personal life, sort of your personal professional experience, or in your teams, would you say is the most important to you?
Can you enlarge a little bit? Enlarge the 7 promises.
Should have made it bigger.
Number 1 is compassionate and inclusive. Second is being recognized and rewarded. And then you got safe and healthy. Always learning.
Voice that counts.
Voice that counts. Flexibility. Safe and healthy. So anyone from the audience? This table? For me personally, to break the ice, this is the first one. You know, I know since the beginning of this new set of senior leaders that we got, is the being compassionate and inclusivity, which we have it, you know, which I praise the current, you know, leadership, and they kind of emphasize more how they want, you know, to emphasize this being compassionate care that we provide, and also the organization that being recognized, the networks and everything, being active on the trust. So anyone from the audience?
Be controversial. I mean, I would agree. I think there's a reason that one's first. I think without compassion and inclusivity, arguably you can't do any of the rest. I was tempted to talk about recognition and reward. You'll have noticed in my slides I didn't talk about money. I thought we'd steer away from that today and just talk about thank yous. And I do think, you know, a voice that counts is close to being compassionate and inclusive. So if you like the next stage, if you create an environment where people are safe, then they will put their hand up or ask those questions. And yeah, going back to some of the reports that have been published recently, often the root cause of where things have arisen is because people haven't felt able to speak up and haven't been able to say, I'm not sure about this. So that one to me, I think, is pretty important. Are there things maybe that you sort of thought about that I could do together with Greg and the next president of the BHT KALINGA organisation? Are there things that you think of these? Where do you see the place for staff networks and how you can really work with the senior leadership team in whichever organisation you come from to really push this forwards?
We want it to continue and be more proactive. I think now that we have started with this organization, we're happy that you're supporting us, all of you, but we want it to continue because we want the next generation to experience, you know, the best really, and to be able to have the support that and the enjoyment that we have, and learning that we have. So it's really great, and we're really grateful. We're really grateful that this organization has pushed through, and then of course we will not be able to make it without the support from the senior management. So yes, we want it to grow, to continue, and be more productive in BHT.
Of those of you that work in other organisations, have you got sort of things that have really worked for you that you thought, actually I'm going to come here today and I'm going to share that story or what we do in our organisation? Because I think we've got colleagues from different NHS organisations here. Any bits that you thought, actually my team do that really, really well?
From community? Raise your hand from community, anyone? Come on.
I'll say something.
She would like to ask something.
So what you were saying, so I just wanted to say, on that we are a team. Theater is a very, very team people. Like, for example, recovery, BSU, theaters and discharges in DSU as well. So I have received a letter from I think it was sent to the chief executive, and then it was sent to us because I was part of that team. So this man had a fracture, and he said from the beginning, from DSU, that he was looked after, and then went to theater, and then went to recovery, and then back to theater. He said it was 5-star service, and he was very happy, and his letter was really touching, and I was like, at least somebody knows. Most of the time, nobody knows. Everybody says like, I went into that one team, one goal. They were talking about all the people that are in the Word. They were saying how they look after them and that, but nobody knows that what we did in theater. But this man said, from everything, from the beginning to the end, it was first class. So we are a team.
Let me just ask something. We got some questions from online, and we are live via YouTube and Facebook. The one question that was asked, she's still studying nursing in the Philippines, and she's asking why Buckinghamshire Healthcare NHS Trust.
So I think today would be a good example of that. I would ask the questions.
That's better. I think I would, if people ask why BHT, I would ask them to ask colleagues about why BHT. So this year, we celebrated 20 years since BHT first went out to the Philippines and said to people, would you like to come and nurse in the UK and specifically in BHT? And I think, well, Mary and Greg can correct me with the numbers, I think we recruited 37 people at that time. 37, and 20 people still work at BHT. And I think that comes to the word team. So certainly I know that, you're seeing me, Karen, and you're seeing Neil, our chief exec, later. None of us take what any of our colleagues do for granted, and the contribution in particular from colleagues from the Philippines and Filipino heritage make a massive difference to us at BHT, and it is a partnership. And I think that's the bit that if I was to say what might set us apart from other organisations is we work together with people to say, how can we support you, do what you want to do best every single day? That's my pitch. Please come and join us.
Very good. So earlier, Jenny presented the data of how many Filipinos are there, nurses, particularly in the UK. Could you give us an insight, particularly in Bucks Healthcare Trust, about the numbers of the Filipino? What are the trusts? Where are we? I know staffing is always needed. Just to give us an idea, how many Filipino workers we got at the moment, average of people coming in, and what are the trust initiatives to improve, obviously, our recruitment?
Good question. So we at Bucks employ 6,500 people. Guesses as to how many of those are registered nurses? Ideas? 2,000. So I heard 2,000. Yeah, so 2,000 registered nurses, about 1,000 healthcare support workers, be that healthcare assistants or therapy assistants. Any ideas about doctors? How many doctors do you think we employ? Somebody over here's very, isn't it? You may. Meg's got the answers. So it's about 600 doctors. So doctors are about 10% of our workforce. Nurses and care assistants are about half. So really, numerically and probably psychologically as well, make the most difference to our patients every day. So of that 2,000, about 260, and it will be closer to 300 by the end of the year, are colleagues who have come from the Philippines or have Filipino heritage. So now I'm trying to work out my maths. 10% would be 200. 15%, thank you. So I've got answers over here, maths here, perfect. So 15% is a significant proportion of the people who work for BHT. And I think one of the things that I think I'm going to bring Karen into the conversation here. I know. So one of the joys about being a director is that it gives you an excuse to go everywhere, talk to everybody, find out about what their experiences are like. One of the risks is that we're all really, really busy and that you sit in the same room with the same people talking about different issues, but you don't hear those different voices. So having the opportunity and supporting networks and organisations who come together and say, this is our experience, this is what's making a difference to us, here's the stuff you're doing really well, actually you do need to look at that. We couldn't do our jobs anywhere near to the extent that I hope we do without hearing those voices. So it's really, really important. Yes, oh, that's the list one.
Thank you for this opportunity. We have been talking about people promise, and we have been talking about the elements in there. But my question is, in the real world, in the ward and in theaters or in other areas, departmental areas, if a staff would like to pursue a career or have a progression, at times the struggle is the line manager or the manager would say, we don't have a budget, we cannot support you. Or at times, that person would really like to push through and go through, but that is the problem. That's our struggle at the moment. So, could you please give us support on how are we going to really pursue on the goal that we would really like to do? Because we would like to upgrade our career, or have a progression. As I always say to my team, I always say to them, or I always encourage my team to, you would like to become a leader, but it's like taking a taking a driving license. So if you're trying to take or get a driving license and you would like to pass, you really would like to keep on going so that you could be able to run. You could be able to go to the place that you would like to go to. So, going to higher grade is like you'd like to pass that, and it's like taking that license. But then there are challenges like this. So we would like to hear from you. How are we going to do this if our line manager or our managers are telling us that we don't have a budget?
Good question. And timely, because we are just in the process of starting to look to 23-24. So I think the answer, there are three answers. So I always say to people who come to me to talk about their careers or their lives, you do have to drive it yourself. So you are the person who has the greatest interest in your career, and I would always encourage people to think about solutions. So there is something about self. There is absolutely something about managers, and on one of my slides I reference the amount of support that we are putting to training our managers and leaders. Neil MacDonald, Chief Exec at BHT, we met over the summer the teams who showed the most improvements in staff survey between 2020 and 2021. They had one thing in common. They did the fundamentals of a good teamwork really, really well. They had regular team meetings. Everybody in their team had one-to-ones. They did appraisals. They had that real connectivity so that people understood what they were trying to do each day, and their line manager understood what was motivating their team member and how they could support them. Then the third bit, and this third bit, if it sits, well, they all sit with me, is what can the organisation do to provide that overarching framework? So we have some of that through practice development nurses and a really strong education team, which And for me, the challenge is how does everybody in the organisation know about that and feel they can access them, so they can have those conversations and say, right, this is my ambition, this is where I am now, can I talk through with you the pathway through, which then enables you to go to your line manager to say, right, I have an idea, this is what I think I can do, how can you support me? Karen, you moved. Not that she doesn't move a lot.
I don't want to sit down again because I know what I do just want to interject. So there's a couple of things. So great question, but I will also say that it's not always just about education. That's the first thing. It's about experience and exposure. So what we talked about earlier, getting yourself a mentor, tapping into your allies, being at fundamental things like this, going to network meetings, really expanding your networks and getting yourself seen and heard and out there. And the bit where May talked about hearing your voice, putting yours, so that people can start to see your ability to do that job. Because you've got to remember there's always going to be barriers, and unfortunately there's more barriers for people who look like me and many of you in this room. We talked about that earlier. But the bit about you making sure that actually you start to show that you're capable. So the speaking up bit that May talked about is really important. Putting your voice in rooms, being heard, putting yourself up and saying, I'll do that. Even if it means you're extending yourself a little bit, it's not quite your job, if you know what I mean. None of us got the next job until we showed we were able to do it. So there's a little bit about that as well. So don't just be stuck just on education, experience, mentorship, allyship. I mean, look at this. I mean, at the end of the day, there's many people far senior than many of you who've put this event together and could not have done what you have done today. So just remember that there's lots more to think about. We are all here to support you, and we don't always get it right. Organisations are not perfect, but we are here at BHT to do our best for you and the organisation.
Thanks, Karen. We're open for some more questions. I got a question here first.
Hi again, my name is Andy. I'm from Spinal Unit St. Patrick. So my question is, recently there has been a news that the UK is started accepting HCAs from another country. So my question is, when would Bucks accept HCA from other countries, like from the Philippines? Thank you.
Question. To which I don't know the answer exactly, just to let you know, I might have to pick up with you. So bringing people into the UK clearly depends on visas and UK Home Office rules. I think what we will always try and do is be leading the way and saying as soon as the rules change, we will say yes. And I think one of the joys about the KALINGA organisation at BHT is people saying, Bridget, are you thinking about that? So, that question now, I'm thinking, I'll have a look on Monday and have a look. So let's keep in touch. Is that all right?
Thanks, Bridget.
JV.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is JV. I'm a staff nurse from Spinal Unit also. I just hope that there's no valid or invalid questions. Given the shortage of staff, which is, I think it's a long overdue concern of the NHS, what are the plans in place, or what are the action plans being implemented in order for the staff to stay? Or if not to stay, how are we going to fill in the gaps for different wards? Because we do see a lot of people promise in there, like we are safe and healthy. But if a ward is understaffed, how can we achieve that safety practice? And I will keep it short that way. Thank you.
So the workforce availability skills is both the NHS's biggest, I can't think of the word, the thing that matters most to the NHS, and therefore the flip side of that is its biggest risk. And we see nationally conversations about there are not enough nurses, care support workers, doctors, therapists. So there is a national conversation to be had about the NHS, and that is for politicians, fortunately, not me. Steering away from that. So I think, certainly when you, whatever your role is, you think, what's in my gift to make a difference? And at the moment, as I said, we're just looking at how do we plan what we're going to do next year at BHT? How do we ensure that we've got the best, the right people to deliver that care? So you start with, what are we trying to do? And how can we do it differently? So there will always be a budget, a financial envelope within which we have to operate, much as we run our own homes and houses. I think realistically, there are finite skills and people. So we're in a really competitive world at the moment. So people at school across the world are thinking, what do I want to do with my life? So we have a real opportunity but responsibility to say the NHS is a good place to work. So what that then means practically is the people who are best able to determine what the best workforce and best team to deliver care is, are those people who are delivering that care. So how do we enable those teams to say, right, we've got this many people in our team, here are the skills they've got at the moment, and here are the skills they could have, here's the experiences we could gain to future-proof ourselves and keep on pushing forwards. Now, overlaid with that, there are some things, if you like, that should happen at a trust-wide level. So I'm thinking particularly about digital, IT, all those innovations. When you go online now, often you're talking to a bot, aren't you? You're not talking to a real person. So how are we, in your specific areas, and I know in spinal injuries unit there's loads of tech, but there is definitely a next step of, in 5 or 10 years' time, what will our workplaces look like? Will we have a virtual colleague? Probably. So for me, there's some stuff that the trust needs to do, and there are some things that we, if you like, as a board of directors need to decide. So what are we going to invest in? But there is also that bottom up about, okay, how are we as a team? We know what we want to deliver, we know the care we want to deliver. How are we going to use our skills to do that going forwards? Is that all right? It's tricky, and if you listen to national conversations, people are asking for an NHS workforce plan, and there isn't one, because it's really, really difficult. And so, if we think it's difficult in every ward, every team, people are thinking, how best can we get the right people in to do this? And you scale that up across the NHS. So if you've got answers, come and talk to me and Karen. Yeah, come and see us.
Okay, thank you very much. So, yes. Final question, please. Yes, Paul?
Can you pass the mic? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Paul. I'm a respiratory specialist from Spinal Unit in Stoke. About recognition and resilience and awards, we know the nurses are one of the most hardworking and resilient workforce in the NHS. But I think most of the times we're not recognized and awarded. So this is not a question. I'm just taking the opportunity to congratulate everybody who's been here for the last 20 years. If you can stand up.
So that's, I think, is a fantastic way to end the session. Thank you very much. I can see our next speaker here.
Again, ladies and gentlemen, let's give a round of applause for Bridget McKelly.
Right, on to the next speaker, with the topic, Integrated Care Systems, the Future of Healthcare. Our next speaker...
Silence, please.
Alright, thank you. Alright, again, on to the next topic, which is about Integrated Care System, the Future of Healthcare. So our next speaker is a highly motivated, inspirational chief nurse with a passion to progress and advance nursing practice and act as an ambassador for NHS. Relentless passion for excellence, coupled with the tenacity to drive significant and complex patient-centric organizational change. A proven track record of ensuring the delivery of high-quality care on a national scale, at board level in acute and community NHS trusts and the independent sector. Portfolios include infection control, safeguarding, continuous quality improvement, patient and customer experience, and clinical training and development. She demonstrates knowledge of current health and care priorities and the implications on delivery of excellent patient care. She also has proven track record of strategic planning, quality improvement, workforce planning, recruitment and retention. She has a full life cycle project management and change management experience. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome our next speaker, Rachel Corser, registered nurse at Adult Nursing.
Wow. I'll let you into a little secret. I have the biggest imposter syndrome ever. And being in this room with all of you makes me feel even more like that. I mean, that you all standing up just then, and those of you that have been here for 20 years and more, making the impact you've made, makes me even more proud to be a nurse. I'm not sure I recognise half of what you read out there. Anyway, so my name is Rachel, and I'm the Chief Nursing Officer at the Buckinghamshire, Oxfordshire, Berkshire West Integrated Care System. And even when I find myself saying that now, I still pinch myself and think someone's going to ring me and say, no, we've changed our mind. And although I went through what was a really, really torturous process, and Karen was part of that process, it's been the most phenomenal 2 months of my career. I have learnt so much. Every day I have equal measures of fear, pride, feeling incredibly privileged to be doing what I'm doing, and I'm hoping over the next 20 minutes we can explore together what the role means, because you might help me understand a little bit more about the many acronyms and the way in which we're going to move together to really integrate health and care into the future. So I'm one of 6 board members working at the Integrated Care Board, and we have a joke that you have to be called Rachel to work in the system. And actually, if you want anything doing, if you say, can we ask Rachel to do it, one of us will sort it out. So I'm very lucky to work with the amazing Dr. Rachel Deco, who's the Chief Medical Officer. And you'll see there's a number of other interims, and I think that's just a signal of perhaps how as a system we are evolving and working together to try and appoint some really extraordinary colleagues to work alongside us. So it's all very, very new. We first formed on the 1st of July, and I started with the ICB on the 12th of September. So it's all still really very, very new. So that's us. So we are responsible and being held to account by some really challenging non-exec directors and colleagues across the system on a number of different things that we are working with all our partners to do. One other thing I forgot to say, this is the best meeting I've ever been to for a number of reasons. Not least, it's got me out of doing the
washing up. I literally live half a mile from the and it probably took me longer to get here because the traffic in and out of Aylesbury is horrendous at the moment, isn't it? So I've got a personal connection to Buckinghamshire, particularly, and many of you will know I worked in BHT 10 years ago and was part of integrating community and acute services. So I feel a real connection to Buckinghamshire, particularly to BHT and to the system. So that really matters to me. So we're going to have a bit of a quiz. Can we move on? So you'll see this. I pinched this slide. I'd love to think that I actually did it, but I didn't. I pinched it from our friends at the King's Fund because I thought, how am I going to explain what on earth integrated care systems are when they are really trying to evolve and form? So we first were established in July 2022, formally legal, and replaced what you might have heard previously as clinical commissioning groups, so CCGs. Yeah, but we're not allowed to call it a rebranding of CCGs, and it really isn't. And I think if we think of it like that, then we're never going to move forward. This is about us thinking really differently about how we integrate our health and our care workforce, our voluntary care sector, how we bring everybody together to put the patient at the core of what we do. And wouldn't it be amazing if the patients that all of us touched and the lives that they're having were able to move seamlessly through health and care without, oh well, I don't know whether it belongs to social care, or is this a healthcare wash, or is it a social care wash, and you know, the frustrations that we all feel and see. And I think, you know, now more than ever, particularly with us facing head on into real austerity, it's even more important that we spend our money as well as we possibly can. So we've got the integrated care system that sits at the top, supported by our colleagues at NHS England and the CQC. And then sitting within the integrated care system, you've got the integrated care board, which is what I sit on. One of those ugly mugs on the front page. That's us, the integrated care board. And we're supported at the integrated care board by what we call partner members. And actually now your very own Neil is from BHT, is a new partner member on the board. So we've got Bucks sitting right at the table, which is wonderful. We also have partner members from the local authority, so statutory bodies sitting there making an impact and helping to influence. And we have partner members from the Mental Health Trust as well. So it's really important that we integrate how we deliver health and care and how we are influencing the decisions we make at board with our partner members. And we have non-exec directors sitting with us as well. And then we have an integrated care partnership, which is again another part of the system that's evolving, and the integrated care partnership will be responsible for setting the strategy, for setting the things that we're going to really focus on over the next few years. Now you can imagine how the conversation went, can't you, when I said, who's on the IC board? And I said, and more importantly, who's there advocating for our patient or our workforce, our nurses, our midwives, our allied health professions? And you can imagine there was a, oh gosh, how do we answer this? Well, we've got public health, is that there? Hi. That's good. No nurse or midwife. No. So that's evolving, needless to say. And using this experience today is helpful because I can use all this interaction to go back and say, well, do you know what? We've got this amazing workforce out there that are going to be delivering the care and making happen the things that we're going to sit here and decide we want to happen. So it's really important that you've got people advocating for that. So we've got the whole integrated care partnership, and then sitting under that, we've got, I can't begin to tell, I feel like I run around with a dictionary of what on earth's going on. So we've got provider collaboratives. This is where people providing healthcare are coming together to work collectively, collaboratively, to spend our money wisely and to really put the patient at the core of what they do. And that's across acute care, community services, mental health services, voluntary care sector. So that's evolving, it's fair to say. We've then got health and wellbeing boards. So again, this is where people are really focusing on how do we keep our people well. I think one of the many reasons, but one of the reasons why I was so interested in stepping into a system role is this is a real opportunity for us to focus on how we prevent ill health, and focusing on making sure we stop people becoming poorly where we can, and giving people permission and the information they need to be able to keep themselves well. We've then got place-based partnerships, so across our integrated care system we've got 3 places: Buckinghamshire, Oxfordshire, Berkshire West. So again, within that footprint, how do we make sure that where decisions are made as close to the patient as they can be? And that's evolving. And then we've got anyone that works within primary care in the room? Oh, brilliant. So Marianne, you'll know the complexities of our lovely general practice colleagues, our GPs, and the primary care networks that are there. But the more we get involved in influencing how those primary care networks work and deliver care again at that neighbourhood, the better it is. So that's what our integrated care system is, and I think this will continue to evolve as we understand more. But if you know your ICS from your ICP, from your ICB, and we'll play acronym soup and acronym bingo at some point, but it is really challenging to navigate through that. So can we go on to the next slide? So can I ask you some questions now? You're all sat there thinking, oh. So what does integrated health and care mean to you?
Is it like 1 here, 1 there, 1 there, and then
One here, one here, one here, one here, bringing it all together. Spot on. Spot on. Yeah. Anyone else?
I think it's from the hospital that you discharge them to the community, like to the nursing home, or to the district nurses, or to the other sectors, or if you need to send them to mental health or wherever that you need. So it's all the health care that NHS serves.
Yeah. Yeah, brilliant. Anyone else want to have another go? Yes, there we go.
no.
It's like sectors that come together to work with the patient, with the funding or different areas that we need to accommodate the needs for that resident.
It's a network, isn't it?
Anyone else? Oh.
It seems like just one group is integrated, isn't it? One.
And you're all spot on, and I think that the biggest challenge for us as we really embed integrated health and care across systems is about that collaboration. And I wish I'd have come up with this concept, but I didn't, so I'm going to attribute it to the guy who did. So last week we held our first clinical care professional leadership workshop. Karen was too busy in Barbados, or wherever she was to join us, and the chief exec for the Oxfordshire County Council, who was a nurse many years ago, and he described the way in which we need to move forward in health and care, a bit like when you first set out in a relationship. So when you first start falling in love with somebody, you're not going to on day one say, should we set up a joint bank account? The minute you do that, they're going to run a mile, aren't they? Although I'm still trying to work that with my husband. So what we need, you start to develop those relationships, and then you build trust, don't you? And once you trust each other more, you think, actually, yeah, we can start to share our money, and I know you're not going to go and do a runner with it, or I promise I'm not going to go and spend it too much in John Lewis or wherever. And so we've got to build those trusting relationships with all of our colleagues across the health and care system, so that we can spend money fairly and not feel like we are having to hang on to silos, so that we can really make sure we've got that patient at the core, and our service users at the core of what we do. So you're all absolutely spot on. I won't read this out, but the bits at the top here, the 4 points at the top, are the kind of 4 fundamental pillars of what it is we are trying to achieve through integrating health and care systems together. And then within the ICS, these are the 6 priorities that we are going to focus on, and everything that we try and do will be about addressing those issues. And a lot of that reflects what I said at the beginning around that integration, using integration to help prevent ill health and stop people turning up in our A&E that shouldn't be there. Because, not because we don't want to see them and not because we're not going to give them good care, but because actually there are alternative pathways to take place. Is there anything? So I think the next question I'm going to ask you as I finish on this is, what does this mean for us as nurses, as clinicians, as care professionals? What does this mean for you? And again, thinking about how we embrace diversity, how we embrace equality and access around the health and the care that we want to give. What do I need to take away from today? My ask of you is, what can I take away? What can you hold me to account for as an ask about how we influence more about integrating health and care? What does this mean for us as professions?
It's about collaboration with the multidisciplinary team.
Yeah. Well, I would challenge that. I think we need less beds. We know that there is so much research that shows outcomes for patients and service users are better if we shift towards non-bed-based care. We know they decondition, all the things that we see firsthand. And Carol, were you on the national webinar yesterday with Sue Powell? And I've forgotten his name, it's completely gone, but the National Director for Mental Health. He was talking about us following one of the European models of healthcare where there is no inpatient beds for mental health provision, because they've developed a model that's so much. I mean, imagine that, because all of us are distressed by having to care for patients because they're in the wrong environment. And if we can create that, if we can bring our workforce together and create greater capacity by doing that, wouldn't that be a great thing? Wouldn't that be success? So yeah, collaborate, absolutely collaborate.
Yeah, so if I could add up, so with the integration and bridging the gap of collaborating with other departments, what we usually do to help with the bed pressures in a hospital, if we identify a day case patient, then we go route on the day case pathway rather than using our bed capacity in the hospital, because we know how in dire we are with the bed status. So we try to collaborate with the bed manager, with the day surgery pathway, short surgical assessment unit, or
And how do we use our relationship as clinical care professionals to have a different conversation with families as well, so that they work with us on taking that responsibility and accountability, and with our public, because a lot of people still think that healthcare means being in a bed, doesn't it? And again, that united workforce will really help with that. Any other thoughts or things for me to take away around that care? I can see someone, is that Jean already? That's pretty impressive. Now I'm jealous.
Hi Rachel. Rachel and I did work together a long time ago. So can I reflect the question a few years ago? What can we do as a trust and from the KALINGA Filipino organisation to help you do your job? So that promotion of the nursing voice, the clinical voice, the provider voice, how can we keep engaged with you and other colleagues at the ICB so that you feel connected? Yeah, so how can we help you?
I love that question. So, as if it was planted by chance. I'm glad you asked. So I think there's a couple of requests. So the first is, invite me to this, things like this, because it really helps me having that connection. And I think that's really important for me to keep hearing your voices of our entire workforce across the system. So that's the first ask. The second is, I'm planning on spending 1 day a week out and about in practice, and I want to use that time usefully and purposefully. So working alongside you, so I can use that experience to take into the board and influence those conversations that we're having. So, you know, if you see me wandering around looking a bit lost and you know, take me under your wing and share with me the experience of how it's feeling. And you're the ones that have got the ideas. You know, so how can we build momentum? And Karen will remember this. So one of the things that I sort of described when I was going through the interview process was this vision of one collective professional voice, because we would be really, really powerful, or we will be powerful if we can do that collectively together. And think about what that brand or what that identity could or should look like. So how do we grow our next community of workforce that feel part of this health and care system across Bob, it's level 3, not very attractive. We have to come up with something a bit more glamorous. And I think, you know, there is real opportunity. So next year, we don't know what's going to happen with the money that comes in to help us with training and education. But how do we use that in a really creative way so that we can bring the future workforce into the system and just help them to move across that health and care pathway so they can really understand how we can integrate care as well as it can. So I think they're my 3 asks. Keep me connected by inviting me to events like this, support me when I'm out and about in practice and help me with influencing my thinking. And then the third is about how we become ambassadors of the brand that is the Bob system, so that we can create that one professional voice collectively together.
Last question. Hi Rachel, I'm Jenny, and I'm nurse advisor at NHS England. I just wanted to plant the seed. So we had an away day with the HSC and NHS England, and it's the workforce, and you were saying who's in charge of the workforce. And there was a question earlier about retention and how I think the other thing that in terms of progression for our ethnic minority community is that exposure and the stretch opportunities to make them really aware of how the system works. And I was telling this to the HSC, why can't we have joint contracts with social care and NHS so that that rotation, that learning between the two, they're always seen separate, even with workforce. And you know my aspiration, and this is the dream, any nurse, an international nurse who comes from anywhere, who comes into the UK, be it in the NHS or social care, should have the same experience when they come. But unfortunately, we are fully padded in the NHS. We have things in place now and it's much better, but only when I got into this role, the social care nurses, the ones in nursing homes, they don't have the development, they are stuck. And then, how do we make them go further and understand that there is something that can be more rounded for them to just not be labeled social care nurses?
Brilliant question. So we already do have some joint roles across health and social care, but we don't have enough. And that goes back to my point about the trust of the money and how we look at that differently. And I'm starting to form my structure. And you know, the people within my team, and there are a couple of roles that I'm thinking could and should be across to collaborate both with the partners in the system, but also within social care. And an example of that would be a director of safeguarding. So if you think a lot of what we do within safeguarding straddles local authority and healthcare, and wouldn't that be brilliant to have somebody that could interface between the two? And you know, we've got examples in systems now where providers are sweeping up care homes because you know they're falling over and they've not got the recruitment pipeline that they want or the development opportunities. The same with general practice. and all of those are really small independent organisations that would benefit from some of that bigger collaboration. So I probably haven't answered it entirely, but it's a really good challenge and one that I will take away and make sure that as we evolve more, we will do more to integrate the workforce across health and care. Yeah.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much. So, just to make you aware, KALINGA as well is part of the BOM ICS team, network-wise. So, we did the Sports Fest last year. What we're aiming for early, what we're aiming in the summer of this year, instead of next year, it's going to be an inter-trust. And this is where BOM ICS is coming. So, we're going to have Oxfordshire, Berkshire, and we're trying to get the Hertfordshire and Milton Keynes involved for the first inter-trust Sports Fest. Us being the birthplace of Olympics, I said we have to host it first, and we are going to win it.
And also, we were already given a go signal by our chief exec, so Neil said we will host next year.
Again, let's give a round of applause to Rachel.
Cheers. Let's do the cheers, please. Cheers. Let me use the small cheers.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am honored and privileged to introduce to you this person who joined the National Health Service in year 2000. He completed his Master's in Advanced Nursing Practice at City University in London 2010. He worked in medium to large NHS organizations in various roles, such as Advanced Nurse Practitioner, Clinical Educator, and different levels of senior management. He joined the Trust in August last year as an Associate Chief Nurse Workforce Transformation and Professional Practice. He is passionate about quality and safety, staff development and education, clinical practice standards, and workforce values. Please join me to welcome no other than Jose Cloyd Facultad.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On the same, I think on the same topic, the other speaker is a lead cancer nurse. He is qualified as a nurse back in Northern Ireland, Northern Ireland in 2009, and has worked in a variety of roles such as across cancer care, critical care, and disaster relief. He is a big believer in clinical frontline leadership, alongside completing his master's in global health, and he also completed a master's in business and completed a PhD, combining patient and health professional experience to help develop models in care in cancer service. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Dr. Michael Mooney.
Okay, so Alan Turing, yeah, one of the greatest mathematicians that the great and the world has seen, one of the pioneer in computer. He was convicted of being a homosexual. I think, as far as I'm not an expert in history, he was pardoned eventually by the late Queen Elizabeth. LGBT has gone leaps and bounds from the day when they were persecuted, spat on, something like that. Wow. Not until the Equality Care Act of 2010, when the gay rights or LGBT rights has been protected, particularly in UK. The funny thing is, in Philippines, there's no law has been passed up until now that protects the gay right. There are ordinances in some area, but there's no law as yet. So why in this conference, why are we talking about LGBT? What's got to do with us? I got a son which is homosexual. Yeah, I can say I struggle a little bit, mainly because of our culture. So this is one of the reasons why we included this topic, which I think you got a family, you got a friend, a brother, a sister, a children, LGBT, which, you know, there's some struggle, particularly in our Filipino culture. This is why we include this in our topic. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'll give you the guest this evening.
Okay, let's keep this question. I'll have the first question thrown to Michael. Alright, so ready? Okay. So given that Ireland and the Philippines has a strong Catholic, these two are strong Catholic countries. So how did religion, your faith, and your culture influenced you coming out?
Ooh, okay. How long have we got, guys? Because I could stop here for a while. Firstly, what I'm going to say is it's a real privilege to be here today, and this relates very much to culture. I'm going to flash back to my very first placement as a student nurse, and my very first mentor. Her name was Jocelyn Flores, a Filipino-British nurse, and she was phenomenal. But it was the first time I'd met a Filipino person, and our cultures were just the same. We both value community, togetherness, and that's partly why I can sit here today with pride and talk about something that's very difficult, something that's very personal. And I think what we need to remember in these conversations, they will affect everyone in the room differently, but we always lead with respect. I sit here as an agnostic. I don't necessarily have a belief in a Christian God. There could be something out there, I don't know. But my parents do. They are very, very religious. They're Protestant, and they would describe my lifestyle choices as wrong. Their concerns would be about my eternity, my afterlife, but we get on really well. We've got there. But there was about 3 years when we didn't talk. So in terms of circling back to your question, I think the key thing that we want to get across is having respect for one another. I respect my parents, and the fact that they have a different belief from mine doesn't stop them loving me or me loving them. But what I will say is it was difficult to get there. So in terms of me coming out, I didn't come out until I was 24, and up until that point, I had gone through gay conversion therapy for about 3 years, and there was a lot of that trying to adapt to try and have your homosexuality cured. And for me, that was driven by religion. So while I do not sit here as an identifying Christian, I do have a deep respect for Christians, but what I would also ask for is that respect in return. Everybody should be able to share their beliefs freely and celebrate them and embrace them, and that goes for everyone. But in terms of religion and faith having a huge impact, it certainly did. But what I would say is respect is the thing that goes forth, and it's circled round really well. And as a man who's now 34, have a very good relationship with my very Christian family from very Christian Northern Ireland. And in fact, I'm going back next weekend and can't wait.
Sarah, coming from the Philippines, as an overseas nurse and growing up in the Philippines, coming here, is there any difference at all?
Thank you. Thanks. Again, echo Michael has said, and all our speakers said, it's a great privilege and opportunity to come and speak to you all, and especially in this very important, passionate about topic about LGBT. There's not much difference. I grew up in a dual religion family, Catholic and Protestant. So as a Catholic mother, with a Catholic mother, we have to behave like a man, as a man. As with my Protestant father, we have to as well the same thing. I think for our generation, and good, I think, as we come out in here, I think, with the hope there is some awareness, understanding, and acceptance, and respect as well as we get. The new generations, I think, the millennials have probably been open their mind, but for us, I think our generation, the taunting, the teasing, and the street in school is unbearable. So I myself, for religion, on the religion side, I have to behave as what it is expected by the family, by the church, and by everything within the organization of the Protestant religion. My father is a deacon, and I have to behave to respect him. Nothing to change my action that will show that I'm gay, because it will tell who's that son of yours. So I grew up in hiding, and I had to hide that. I then came out, yes, Margaret, I came out about the age 23 as well, not until I went abroad. Yes, until I went abroad. There's acceptance, there is freedom. I think I mentioned in my private conversation with my other friends, I've been raped by my cousin when I was in college. We're all nurses. We're both nurses. To be a nurse in the Philippines, I think in our generation, as a male, you got a nurse because you feel like effeminate. You're not gay, that's why you become a male nurse. Go take nursing because you're like female looking. It's a female profession. Be accepted that in the Philippines, it's a female profession. Lately, then the male nursing is being kind of encouraged because yes, you become a nurse as a male because there are heavy patients. You go to America, you can lift. You're strong, and you do. That's why you do nursing as a male person. Coming out in the age 24. Only here in UK. I struggled when I was in Libya for 5 years because you cannot express yourselves at all. But my Libyan counterparts sense that I'm gay, so I have really to behave as I am. Otherwise, where will you end up? Of course, you're gonna be in jail. So here, I think, and here as I come in here, I feel liberated, but still I have to be quiet. I still keep myself quiet because I'm observing. Oh, I can see many like me. And I think I was a first job in Surrey, in Chertsey, so dead town in the year 2000. By 5 o'clock it's quiet, no one else, all straight people, and to go to London to go out. So yes, there's not much difference, but I think I'm privileged that I come in this country, that I'm able to come out. So thank you.
Yeah, I'll just make a follow-up. You both said when you did realize you were part of the community for the LGBTQ+. When did you both begin telling others, and how was that experience?
Again, I could sit here all day talking about this. It's very difficult, and if I'm going to be completely honest, and the reason I can be completely honest because I feel part of this community, and that's lovely. It's not easy. It is not fully comfortable for me to sit here and say I am a gay man. Why? Because immediately my brain flashbacks to danger. immediately it flashbacks to you're not enough. So when Karen really openly this morning talked about sometimes she would get this feeling if she wasn't enough, it is there in my head constantly. And I think one of the key points for me is that everybody has a story behind the scenes and you don't always know what that is. And you know what, our chief nurse at the Bob talked about that imposter syndrome. Everybody has something going on behind the scenes. I've started twittering away, I can't remember what your question was. So what was it?
How was the experience telling to others that you are part of the
Yes, I remember now. Difficult, and still is difficult, but what I'm going to reflect on is a recent opportunity I had from joining BHT, only coming recently here, is doing the allyship training. That has really opened my mind, because when you first was invited to come to this talk, I started to reflect on what experiences will I have talking about being LGBT in the NHS. And I'm fortunate in some ways to say that I have never experienced homophobia. I never felt at a disadvantage for being gay. But then I also thought about that through the context of a buddy I got through the allyship training, which is this training we do internally. I'm sure Bridget or somebody else can give a much better view on what it is, but in essence it teaches you how to look out for somebody who's other or a bit different, or how you support other people. And I guess for me with my buddy, it's about recognising that there's little microaggressions there all the time. And for me, that's what triggers you. So it's still difficult, but the key point is we need to be proactive in calling that out. I can think of an example recently within a workplace where there was heavy rain outside. Somebody didn't want to go out into the rain, and they said, "Oh, don't be so gay." Now that might just be a passing comment, but what that does is that exacerbates that feeling for the person who identifies as gay as you're a little bit less. So I think my key point would be it's still difficult, but we have to learn to grow into that and be proactive and challenge it and not become passive. So it's an onward thing. So it's good for me to sit here and say I am gay and do not have shame, but that doesn't mean it's easy.
Thank you. It is difficult to start with, but you know what? I'm very grateful for that mentor I have in A&E at St. Peter's. One day, she's teaching me in the research department and saying, "Come on, girl, come out." I said, "Don't hide. I love games." And all that night we just chat. Seems like it's a busy department. As busy as before year 2040 ambulances queuing. This year is better. 40 ambulances queuing at that time. But it seems like my night is so light that I got someone talking to me, start coming out, tries to encourage me to go out. Go to London, don't stay in church, sis. Nothing for you here. That's when I then tried to come out. My sister was here, but my sister probably knows that I'm gay already. She sensed that. The most difficult thing to come out, my mom, I don't know whether she knew it. When I got married here, they've never been invited, so it was built in the Philippines. When I come to bring my husband in Philippines, when he's coming, following me because we're gonna go to the beach or resort, whatever, I met mom in one of the city and showed the picture and said, "I'm married." And she said, "Oh, who's that girl?" So when I show the picture, I can see tears. I just said, "Oh, I wish you could have married a girl." "Mom, you know I'm not." Dad said, she said to my aunt, to auntie, that I'm effeminate. So Dad pick it up. I'm sure you pick it up. She said, "I know, but I'm praying and hoping that you'll bring a girl in front of me." But she met my loving husband. She was joined and they become best friends. She even said, "The best manugang, the best in-law I have is difficult at the start, but it becomes easy as I get along. And then even to mentors that I come to the next organization, I always say, "I'm gay, can I go out?" And and they said, "Yeah, I love that gay." So that's my experience. I'm very, very thanks.
Yes,
All right, thank you.
I would like to, because I think you both are successful in your own ways and professionally and personally. But let's talk about representation, about the LGBTQ and LGBTQ plus whatever. Okay, so LGBTQ plus in the NHS. So how is the representation? How strong are we when we talk about NHS?
That's a good question.
Thanks, Jose, for letting me lead on this. He's quickly thinking of the answer. I would say we're really strong. And I've really had to rack my brains and say, have I experienced homophobia and do I see homophobia? I have not experienced it, and I see small microaggressions, as we would say. So I see elements of it, but I have never seen any malicious intent within the NHS setting. In fact, I would say one of the reasons I was able to come out at 24 was because of my NHS family. And actually I can reflect back to working on the cancer ward over in Queen's Hospital in Romford. And the deputy sister came on and was very cross because I hadn't got my IV fluids up. She went, Michael, just because you're gay now doesn't mean you can't do IV fluids. And that was only a day after coming out, but naturally I was just suddenly swept up into community. And I think that's one of the best things about the NHS is you find a place no matter where you are, and again you see that respect coming through. So I would say we're quite strong. We've got the NHS rainbow badges. There is a presence there, but I wouldn't let that come into complacency because like that other story, we hear of those little small things. And I cannot tell you enough how those little tiny comments can be so difficult. On a personal example, my mother, very religious, also will not say the word gay. She would refer to my partner Paul as my special friend. Now it might seem cute in some ways, but for me I found that really difficult. I'm like, no, this is my partner. He is my equal. He's my chosen one. He's not a special friend. And it's not respectful to me if I don't challenge that in her. And she's a woman in her 80s, so it's not easy to challenge an Irish woman in her 80s, let me tell you that. But yeah, so I think we are quite strong. I don't see much shame coming through the NHS from the LGBTQ plus community.
Would you like to add something about it?
Yes, I think I second that. So LGBT here in this country went a long way in terms of kind of acceptance and equality and recognition and respect. Maybe in Philippines we still have a long way to do and lots of things to do to lobby. Lots of people there are still taunted, shouted, thrown out, regardless of we knew there are some pockets of areas in Philippines I've heard around that. They can't go out on the Pride celebration, but here NHS, if you see year on year Pride across the country, there's always an NHS representation. There's even bigger group marching on the streets and do that. Like Michael, I don't feel any homophobic, and I think that I was pleased and was lucky that as I come here and came out, there is that support, there is that kind of like body and recognition and respect that I am gay, that I am different, not different that I will do something kind of like bad, different because my identity can have a different contribution as well to the betterment of the NHS. Thank you.
So, in follow-up on what you said, you say, okay, culture, religion, and social stigma are some of the reasons why, particularly in Philippines, a lot of people find it hard to come out as gay. If you are talking to this audience as they're your sister, brother, parents, if you want to speak to them now and they're having difficulty coming, what are you going to tell them?
Very good question. So I think be yourself, have that courage. It's hard. In Philippines, lots of things, but lots of things is going on. But I think you will not be imprisoned if you come out.
It's never a crime, sir.
It's never been a crime. There's lots of sisters there in the parlor dressing. Majority are there. They're the one championing for years. Have someone to talk to. Be honest to your family. I think us our generations, younger generations, younger families grow, they must be open-minded. I can see some are open-minded already. So start that conversation at the start. And of course, be as well the voice of those very young that you can see. Don't go with the flow of taunting. You gay, yeah, you gay. You will not succeed or whatever. But help them as well, guide them in their mental health, because that was really affecting them as well. That if they cannot, they have no one to talk to, they will not be able as well to come out.
Would you like to add something on that?
I'm not really sure I have much to add. Rosie, you covered that so well. I think that the best thing I would say is you do you. I think it's probably different for the younger generation. In this time in 20 years, will we be saying, why isn't you come out? And we probably didn't have to come out. You don't need to ask the question, you don't have to come out, you are who you are. I think if you don't want to come out, then don't come out. You do you know yourself, you follow your gut. There's a lot of people who might want to live quite a private life and never come out. Fine, if that is okay for you, then that is okay for you. But I think that the key point you brought up there, Jose, is just not going with the flow and challenging those comments in the minute when we see them, irrespective of your Christian beliefs. It's another human and it's about respecting one another. So I don't really have anything to add. Jose answered that very well.
Do you have questions from the audience?
Any questions from the audience? Come on.
I'll do a follow-up for that one, sir. When is it okay not to be okay? And when is it not okay to be not okay?
Are you okay?
So I would say, well, first off, I'm okay. But I would say I'm okay because I learned the hard way. And if anyone knows my professional background, this is my first post back in cancer. But for the last 5 years, I wasn't working in cancer. I was working outside of cancer. And in short, I was working on a cancer ward in Oxford. Two sisters, about 6 months apart, both got different types of breast cancer, had chemotherapy, radiotherapy. I was doing my PhD in cancer at the time. And I pushed myself and never put my well-being first, to the point where I broke. And I moved back home to Ireland, lived for 6 months, got the PhD finished, stress levels went like that. But it was a good lesson for me, and I could look back at my life then and see that I wasn't okay for a long time, but I was distracting myself with work, distracting myself with study. And actually, it wouldn't be until about 2 years previous did I then go for counselling and look at therapy, because I got to the point of being 32 in my previous job and stress levels were high again, and you were holding a lot of responsibility, and I was a young man who couldn't really cope with it. But that wasn't necessarily stress. The triggers was constant. You're not good enough. You're not good enough. Okay, you've got the PhD. You're still not good enough. What are you going to do next? How are you going to earn it? And there was a switch in my head just went flick. And I was like, I do not want to carry this for all of my life. I need to get it sorted. It was mid-COVID response. There was lots of support available. I sought help and went through counselling. And part of me wishes I'd had that trigger and click and push years ago, because my counsellor Sylvie, I had 6 sessions, she changed my life completely. Just through 6 sessions of counselling over the phone. So I would say when you're not feeling okay, there is help out there. And I'm not a psychologist by any means, absolutely not. And I guess you come to a point when it's the right time to seek help. But I would be testament to the fact that somebody who had a lot of hidden mental health issues, really it's only 2 years ago that I got through those, and the support was there, and it didn't take long. 6 counselling sessions, that's great. But the help is there. So it's about recognising that it's okay not to be okay, but there's also a time to seek that help and take that first step, and it really isn't as scary as what I had thought it might have been. But yeah.
When is it not okay to be okay? When it's not okay to be okay? Thanks, Mike, I covered that a lot. It is 2 things. You accept that you're okay, and you're okay 100%. Don't flower it, don't sugarcoat it. If you're not okay, that's what Michael has said, there's help out there. Accept it. Be on the real zone, and don't say, okay, I'm okay, someone is taunting me, someone is kind of like thinking, oh, I'm gay, I can't do this, I can't do that, especially for our fellow in Philippines live streaming. Find someone to talk to. Mother is always the best friend of your life. She may not say that in front of you, but once you come to your mother, once you come to our mother, she will listen. Tell you're not okay. Be open, be honest, and always think that there is that positive light at the end of the tunnel if you're true to yourself. So thank you.
I'm going now to the last few questions, sir. So, again, I'm bringing out my magical mirror. Okay? If you stand, can you please both stand? I'm bringing out my magical mirror. What do you see?
You're good. Well, the magical mirror is what you would say to yourself when you're 10, is that right? I'd probably be very honest. I would say it's actually going to be a bit rough, but you know what? It's going to get a lot better and it'll be worth it.
See myself.
You're beautiful.
Thank you. So, when I look at the mirror, the magic mirror, if I look at the magic mirror back to myself, I was a very timid, shy boy, not challenging anything, college student, being raped. I never tell that to my mother that I've been someone that, because it will rip off the family, all the family. It will probably divide all the islands that we all have for just that one thing. But for the magic mirror, I see myself, person that is determined, a new person that will champion a person like me, a person like Michael, and of course will champion as well that there is hope and there is love, there is acceptance, there is equality, not just in this country, but as we also those for our fellow Filipinos in the Philippines.
The most exciting part. Okay. Okay. Let's do fast talk. Hello or goodbye?
Hello.
Hello?
Cat or dog?
Dog. Ooh.
Dog.
No sleep, no food.
No food.
No sleep.
Happy or sad?
Happy.
Happy?
Big or small?
I'm 6'2", so big.
Past, present, or future?
Future.
Future too?
What is the one thing that you do not need a man for?
Disrespect.
Well, no one's going to cook better than I cook.
The last thing. Is it lights on or lights off?
Always on.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Thank you. Parang wala kang
I am ready for our second to the last speaker today. Our topic is supposed to be Plus Ultra, Nursing Informatics and Technology Adoption. It is my great honor and privilege to introduce this amazing person. She completed her bachelor's degree in nursing at St. Paul's University, Manila in 1994 and worked as an ICU-CCU hemodialysis nurse at Manila Doctors Hospital in the Philippines. Before coming to the UK in 1999, she took on a variety of roles in renal, specializing in hemodialysis, peritoneal dialysis, and renal vascular access. She was the first nurse faculty member during the inauguration of the Vascular Access Society of Britain and Ireland, and co-authored several studies published in peer-reviewed journals. She completed the Elizabeth Garrett Anderson Program and was awarded her Master's in Healthcare Leadership in 2018. Her special interest in informatics encouraged her to take on a secondment role as Nursing Information Officer during the implementation of electronic patient record in her trust in 2021, and she has since stayed on to continue as Interim Chief Nursing Information Officer of Royal Free London NHS Foundation Trust. So without further ado, as a Filipino, it is my pride, our pride, to introduce Sheila Sandoval of Royal Free London Hospital.
Good afternoon, thanks Kathy for that introduction. When Randolph first contacted me to discuss about what the topic should be, I had a different title. Need to be technology savvy, the emerging trends, Google Analytics and algorithms. I was like, oh my God. I think he's expecting a Silicon Valley talk. No, thank you mate, but I can't do that. And so we had to change it. Where is that? Plus Ultra, Nursing Informatics, Technology and Adoption. As you can see, I have changed it again. I was too embarrassed to ask him what does Plus Ultra mean. I had to Google it, but we're not going to go into that. So, sorry Randolph, the future is digital, something I am comfortable with and therefore happy to talk to you about. So why do I share that story? I just used up potentially a large chunk of my 20-minute talk, but I think that's really relevant because who knows what I do? You know, what is nursing informatics? But I think that initial discussion between myself and Randolph actually explains that already. You know, it is so vague, it is so vast, and yet it is important. Even up to now, I'm often asked when I go around in the wards, my computer's not working, do you think you can help me fix this for me? Ooh, I don't really know, have you tried turning it on and then off again? That usually works, but that's not what I do. Part and parcel of what I do is to try and facilitate that, but not quite that. Next slide, please. I'm not going to read that, but I thought the definition that the American Nurses Association gave in relation to what nursing informatics is summarizes what nursing informatics is. So here in the UK, the CNIO is a fairly new and emerging role, and even up to now, many NHS trusts, including us here, do not have as yet a CNIO. Not necessarily because no one's thinking about it, no one's doing the job. There are probably people majority of them very senior people in the trust, that actually does bits and pieces of this particularly important role. But there is a drive to try and increase that profile and help people understand what a CNIO does. So I work at Royal Free, one of the loyal ones. I've been working at Royal Free for many, many years, let's not count that. And we are a global digital exemplar trust. So what does that mean? We are digitally advanced. We have one of our sites very recently achieved a HIMSS 7 certification. So what that means is that, like I said, we're digitally advanced. We use technology a lot. But what's more important is how the people who work in the trust use that technology, how we adopt in using that technology. But like I've just said earlier, I still talk about boxes and wires. So what does a CNIO actually do? So first and foremost, I'm a nurse. Every time I come into the wards, every time I come into work, and I come here, I am a nurse. Being techie certainly helps, and it does have its advantages, but it's not a prerequisite to becoming a CNIO. So what do? So when I come into work and someone wants to change something in our electronic patient system, I put my clinical hat on and think, what would I, as a nurse on the floor, do if they give me this? Is this going to be helpful? Is this going to be a hindrance? Is this going to annoy me? So I am a translator of the tech. So I'm the bridge between the clinical side, nursing, and the IT teams and the digital board. I help make sense of the technology and help the teams apply it in practice. I'm also a leader. It is a fairly senior role. I think it would be quite a challenge to be a junior role and suddenly take on a CNIO role. Certainly not impossible, but it will be a big challenge. As a senior nurse with specific focus on digital, the tech is the tech, but the navigation and the complexity of the politics and the system within the NHS, you need to have that senior leadership. And you need to have built yourself with enough pads so that you can challenge what people are trying to implement. Like I said earlier, I still get a lot of vagueness in the role. I had to be comfortable with not always understanding what's coming next. There is no specific competency to say, if you do this course, you can become a CNIO. So there's work ongoing nationally to try and address that. They've identified the importance of developing the digital nursing workforce and therefore eventually having people prepared to becoming CNIOs, but not quite there yet. Oh, sorry. I find it comfortable like that. I do karaoke, you see. Across the country, there's variations in the roles of a CNIO, and depending on where you work, the level of banding also changes. Some work on their own, some have teams. But this is, fairly new territory, and like I said, the vagueness of the role, you have to be comfortable with it. So, can you have the next slide, please? I'm not going to go through that, but a little bit of history. In 2019, Dr. Eric Topol, American cardiologist, came to do a review, was commissioned to do a review, and had provided some insight on how technology is going to affect the workforce in the NHS, and provided some recommendations on how the NHS could move forward in preparing for a digital future. Next slide, please. Just early in the year, Ruth May went to Digital Health Rewired and announced that she would like to see a CNIO in every trust. Future of digital is bright. The appointment of Natasha Phillips as the NHS England CNIO certainly have increased the profile of nursing informatics in the NHS, and there is an ongoing Phillips Ives Nursing and Midwifery Review, hopefully very close to being published, that will give us some more insight on the direction we need for nursing and midwifery. Sajid David, when he was health secretary, announced that he wanted 90% of the trust to be to have an EPR record by 2023. That's like in a month's time. Next slide, please. So how does one become a CNIO? Like I said, currently there's no very clear path to say this is how you become a CNIO. You certainly can't take a renal course and become a renal nurse in the same way that you could take a digital course and call yourself a digital nurse. So I'm going to use this opportunity to tell you a little bit about my story. I love needles. I love needling. Any renal nurses here? No? Okay. I was hoping someone could relate. So you know that feeling when you hold your needle, you insert it on patient's skin, and you feel that pop, and you know you're in. Ah, good. Everyone can relate. Excellent. Love it. I'm a hemodialysis nurse. I'm a clinician. That is what I do. I came into the UK in 1999 with an ITU and hemodialysis background, and I was very fortunate that I ended up in a role in renal. So it didn't take long for me to try and get signed off, get my back then UKCC PIN number. And during my time in renal, talking about technology, there's lots of different hemodialysis machines that came my way. Some are really good, some are really annoying. But I remember during those times when we were trying to evaluate some of those machines, I used to compare them to mobile phones. Oh, that's an iPhone, that's fine. That's an Android, no, don't buy that. And that's how I used to think. I didn't think of myself as digital then. I'm a nurse, I love needling. But equally, I'm naturally curious. So I started exploring different opportunities. I wanted to understand how my renal nursing colleagues in the UK think. And so I did renal course, and then I did a mentorship course. And throughout this time, taking on different opportunities that came my way. Oh, there's a band 5 post, let me apply for that. So I used to be no, not band 5, it was then. It's a D&E grade, sorry. And then an F grade came, and I applied for it. You just take on every opportunity that just came. Oh yeah, that looks nice, let's go for that. During those times, I wasn't thinking about technology. It was just about learning, absorbing everything, learning everything from experience, from training, sometimes at university, sometimes within the trust with a variety of training opportunities that were there. It's about using those opportunities. But it wasn't until I became a nurse specialist in vascular access that I sort of realized the value of digital. In 2018, our trust introduced a new electronic patient record. It wasn't even the full patient electronic record yet, it was just the PASS system, the patient admission system. And I was one of those really disgruntled, very angry clinical nurse specialists who was like, I cannot do my work, this is slowing me down. All these floor walkers really annoying me with their sashes. So I called one. Can you please sit down with me? I really have this clinic to run. I've got all these things that I need to do. I'm on my own. I don't have a team. I need to get going. She was a nurse, and she was very helpful. So I said, this is what I do. This is what I need. How do I do this using the system? So she showed me the basics. And then she said, you're going to have to play with it. I can't tell you exactly what you need because this is what I know of the system. You're going to have to play with it until you work out exactly what you need. So I played. It was the best thing I have done in that role, playing with a new EPR system. So when you get yours, play. That moment definitely changed my life because I used all the information that was available to me to change the way I work, how my service run, I say mine because I was on my own at the time, run my audits, track my patients, etc., etc., etc. None of my surgeons could say, I cannot fit your patient in my theatre, because I could see their theatre list. I could see what's empty, I can see what's full, and I can see my patients. So I knew who was urgent and who wasn't. When I say, I know you don't have a space, but this patient could wait another week, there is a space next week. Can you fit this one in? They thought I was clever. They honestly thought I was so good. No, I wasn't. I was just using digital. That, to me, is my vision of what is a digital nurse. Even then, I didn't know I was digital, but that is a digital nurse. When your EPR system gets implemented, like full electronic patient record, that needs to be the goal. This is an enabler. This is what will make me do my job more effectively, more efficiently, and safer for my patients. This is what digital does. That particular moment in time when I've started harnessing the use of technology, I felt sort of catapulted my career. It was then that I, worked a lot closely with my surgeons. That's when we did all these papers that we wrote, and that's when I came forward and applied to become faculty member for VASPI, and it was inaugurated. Naturally ambitious, I guess. That used to be a dirty word for me. Please don't call me ambitious. I'm Filipino. I hide under the table. But I've learned to accept that over the years. I really did. And actually, someone's laughing, so I have to explain myself. That word ambitious was used to describe me just a few months ago, and I was really, really offended. I had to run to my coach and say, look, someone called me ambitious. I said, why is that a dirty word? Oh, because I'm a Filipino. We're not ambitious, we hide under the table. So I had to work through trying to accept that. So now I can tell you I am ambitious. So I completed my first MC module as a nurse specialist, and it was to become an advanced nurse practitioner. Where's Jose? But after my first module, I realized actually there's probably something missing here. This is not quite what I want. And I think probably that's sort of my character. I know what I want. I know what I don't want. Not entirely sure what I want, but I always know what I don't want. I see it and I know that's not for me. So I looked at other opportunities. I tried to improve myself. I expanded my portfolio, set up a dialysis unit, went back to renal, became a lead nurse, and then my senior matron retired. And there was all this pressure to try and apply to become the next senior matron. I know what I don't want. Definitely not that one. I see what she does, the matron here. Hats off to you, both my hands and feet. Honestly, I cannot do what you guys do. I could potentially, but I probably won't enjoy it. And so I didn't apply, and it was harder to say no than it was harder to say yes, but they respected that. But it took me a year, with the help from my coach, to try and understand what I wanted to do next. Because you look at yourself in the mirror and you say, they obviously see potential in me because they're pushing me to go and apply for these roles. It's me now that's actually saying no. Surely I need to look at what I need to do with myself next time. And then the opportunity for a secondment role as a nursing information officer came when the EPR system was going to be introduced. And I thought, yeah, that's it, that is it. I went to my senior matron then and I said, if I do not get that job, I will cry. can you help me with the interview? And so he was very helpful. I went obviously for the interview, I was successful. And my intention, that I knew that it was a secondment role, and it was the first secondment role that I have ever done. As Filipinos, we like security. We are, we're immigrants. Security is very important to us. You know, you don't rent, you try your best to buy a house. You know, you don't go for bank or agency shifts, you try and get a permanent role. So secondment was scary because what about if there's no job for me at the end of that secondment? I thought, okay, well, let's be brave. You want to be a digital nurse, you've got to take this on. But what I realized during that secondment was it works both ways. It's a test whether you like the job or not. And then you can make a decision to stay or go back. So I stayed because I enjoyed it. I'm on an interim position at the moment. Our permanent CNIO had left the trust and are working through how they're going to advertise it. Job is not mine yet. But certainly it's something that if permanent post comes out, I would be interested. So that's how I became an interim CNIO. You don't need to do what I did. We all have different journeys and we all take on different challenges. But I thought I'd give you this slide. These are some of the sites, you can just Google it actually. These are some of the sites where you will find lots and lots and lots and lots of information and support on how to develop yourself as a digital nurse. You don't need to do what I did, where I had to try and think, what did I need to do? Once you've made that decision, and there's plenty of opportunities out there. Like I said, there's NHS trusts without CNIOs. Who's going to be the next CNIO here? So, prepare yourself for that digital future. Not everyone will be CNIOs, but all of us will become digital nurses. That is the future. We're short of nurses. How are we going to make sure that the nursing workforce that we have works as efficiently as we can? ICB is here. Digital is key for ICB. The patient information from the hospital to the community to social work, back to the hospital, back there, is digital. Digital, next slide please, is the future. Now, I will leave you with this. Does anyone hear this? Excellent. One Sunday morning, a warm sun came up and pop, out of the egg came a hungry caterpillar. What did the caterpillar do? Probably had a tummy ache at the end of it. By the end of that, it became a butterfly. This is change. This is the story of change. We are changing and we are evolving. If you don't eat and have that tummy ache, it's unlikely you will become a butterfly. So I will leave you with that thought. I think the last slide, that's the last slide. Yeah, that's the last slide. Hopefully we'll take you all in this journey of change and embrace digital. Thank you.
You mentioned about digital nursing, but is I don't know. I think it will be in our specific trust, or maybe as a whole NHS. Are we really prepared? Are we equipped? Is there a budget for to go digital?
If you go back to the last slide, please. Previous one, that's it. So, starting point for anyone who is not even thinking about digital yet is a digital readiness education program by Health Education England. It is free. it involves some form of self-assessment to understand where you are. You know, sometimes we talk about, you know, the older generation might not know a lot of digital, the younger ones, but actually that's not true. There's lots of older generations are actually very digitally savvy. So age isn't necessarily different, doesn't necessarily dictate that, although, you know, sometimes it does create a little bit of that. But the Digital Readiness Education Programme of Health Education England helps us prepare for it. We know, like I said, we're going to go digital. We are digital. We are leaving the digital world now. And if you don't go digital, you're going to be left behind and the NHS will fail. Let's prepare ourselves. I hope that many of you, if not all of you, will Google Health Education England Digital Readiness Programme, and you'll find lots and lots of resources that will help you prepare. I think this probably is where there's a little bit of that disparity of sharing what information is out there already. There's lots out there. But how do we make sure that this goes out to the people who can access it or should access it so they can prepare for that digital way of working?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's give a round of applause to Sheila Sandor. Okay, before we go for the coffee break, which is being poured now, our chief nurse is gonna say a last word to say goodbye to her.
So there he is. So I'm going to say my goodbyes. I'm going to leave in the capable hand of Neil MacDonald, who's already in the room at the back, the chief exec, who's going to give us over a session at the end. I just want to say that I've had a wonderful day. It's one of the best Saturdays I've had in a really long time. It's been a real privilege to be in this room, in this space, and to share time with all of you, precious time that, you know, you could be spending in other places. So I just wanted an opportunity. I will be here for a few more minutes if anybody wants to ask me anything, but I'll just say my goodbyes now and thank you. And can we just give these two men and all these people a round of applause? Oh my God. I know you can't steal them, Rachel, I'm just saying. Thank you, everybody. Really wonderful day. Have a great day. All right.
Okay, coffee break, please. I'll come back in 15 minutes time. You can bring your drinks here for the last session. Thank you very much. See you in a bit.